All right, what's up, guys? So in this video, we're going to be covering basically my thought process and my thinking process during sales calls. And one of the things that's helped me the most with my sales and getting as incredibly good as possible is understanding people's mindsets and ways of thinking in these moments. For example, listening to Jeremy Miner's podcast or Hermosi sales advice, and basically understanding how they think about sales, how they think about creating the gap, creating pain, and making it as big as possible so that the prospect has high urgency and high awareness. And so in this video, we're essentially just going to be covering some notes that I took on a previous sales call, and I'm going to walk you through my mindset. Now, if you guys don't know me, my name is Marco Musso, and I run a multi-six-figure a year agency, completely done for you for roofers across the US or home contractors in general. And we're on our way to scaling to seven figures and beyond. And the goal is to build a multi-seven-figure company. And in the process, kind of share the wins and the lessons and all the wisdom that I've acquired throughout this process. And I want you guys to take something of at least value, one or two things just from this video, and apply it into your own life. Something I emphasize tremendously on this channel is just taking at least one thing and just applying it into your own life. Just try it, because education it's like what is the definition of education? Education is same condition, different behavior. Okay, so if you're in the same condition but you don't take a different behavior, you're just entertaining yourself. So let's get into it. So immediately, some of the things that we wrote down is we're a smaller company. Now I wrote this down because this is how I think about the pain. What does that mean, we're a smaller company? And so if people say we're a smaller company, that's already a limiting mindset. That's already a limiting belief in the prospect's minds. Yes, sure, we are dealt with the reality that you guys are a smaller company, but don't say that, because it's your identity. And essentially what we're doing is selling identity at the end of the day, because people change based off of their identity, and emotions are connected to your identity. It's kind of like, why do you buy a certain perfume or scent from an advertising that you saw online? You can't smell it from your phone, but you see the way the people acts, the models acts, the vibe it gives off in the images, in the marketing, and you see yourself in that. And so this is how we are as human beings. And this is already a limiting mindset. And so when people say we're a smaller company, just simply mirror back. In this moment, I said, smaller company, high inflection in the voice, reflecting it back. And then what that does to the other person's subconscious is in the tonality and how I said it, it says to them internally, oh, he doesn't understand what I mean. Let me explain what we're doing, or let me explain what I meant by smaller company. And this is the creation of the gap, because the prospect is saying it from their own words. We're not lecturing it to them. And so do not be like, yeah, smaller companies, we work with smaller companies all the time. Don't validate their emotions. Don't be nice to them. You're here to help them. Okay? And so some other notes, 300K last month. Now you can, so one of the things that I did with prospects that have really big egos, or really type A, or not so much type A, but just prospects in general that have massive egos. One of the things I really like to do on these calls is ask them what they do on a monthly or on a yearly basis. And so if they say, yeah, so on a yearly basis, we'll do 2 million. And then after that, though we did ask the question yearly basis, just to reflect and be like, oh, so you guys do 2 million a month? And then again, that's a question, for putting it back to them. And they're going to say, oh, no, that's on a yearly basis. And you say, oh, yearly basis? And, and it basically just squashes them, because you can also anchor yourself as an authority and as a premium product by saying, oh, typically we only work with companies, doing X and X amount a year, but depends on your situation. So I'll see if we can help you. And just keep going in throughout the discovery. And then that basically shifts the paradigm to us selling them, to them selling us, because they're thinking in their minds, oh, wow, okay, so this is like this Marco guy only works with companies that are doing, more than 10 million a year. I'm only doing, 2-3 million a year. So how exactly can I convince him to work with me? And that's really the paradigm shift. And that's really a specific verbiage cue for influence and authority. And guys, this is huge. Now, Yes, I do have some validity and credibility to everything that I'm saying, but if this exact piece of advice was given to you from Hermosi or from Jeremy Miner, you would listen to it. And so that's why I emphasize all the time, just take at least one thing and apply it into your own agency or on your next sales call. And so just opened an office in Tennessee, okay, Nashville, Illinois, 3 sales reps himself, plus everything's on paper. This is also another pain. Everything's on paper. So this is kind of like an old way of doing business. And with the way in which times are changing, you cannot be doing things on paper no more, right? We are entering a digital age where everything is just marketing. Everything is, if you are not online, you are dying, okay? And that's pure facts. So think about just like the influencer economy, think about social media in general. Like, who knows where this is going to be going in the next 5 to 10 years? No one knows. We can only guess. And the best way the best way to have the most amount of success is to adapt to the changes. It goes back to Darwin's theory of evolution. It's not the strongest, it's not the quickest, it's the person who adapts the most. It's the species who adapts and evolves to the existing market, to the existing environments. And that's the exact same thing with businesses. That's how it works. And so you can kind of build the gap here by saying, oh, old ways, what about the new ways? Things are changing now. Well, what happens if we keep doing things the old way on paper? I mean, times are changing. So what happens in 6 to 12 months' time when nothing changes? Just like that. So other things, we want to get to that point. This is them establishing the gap, and this is golden. And in moments like this, when prospects say, oh, we want to get to that point, obviously you should always clarify what their goal is because they're going to referencing back to it. But we as leaders should also be coming full circle to their goals all the time. And so we always want to mention their end goal, their end desired state, and where they want to be, and then where they want to be versus where they're at right now. And we want to make that gap as big as possible. And so if a prospect on the sales call says we want to get to that point, you could just simply ask, well, why aren't we there just yet? And then, of course, again, they're going to sell you on why they're not there. They're going to create their own gap. They're going to create their own pain and instill their own urgency into themselves. And so that's why the best closers, the best sales reps, they only speak 10% of the time. That's it. Even during the pitch, it's a TikTok pitch. We want to pitch no more than 3-4 minutes. My pitch, no more than 3-4 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, guys, because at the end of the discovery, what we want is their emotions to be at an all-time high, and that they're in that eternal state of change, of feeling that internal pressure. And so we don't want to end the discovery by talking about things that aren't invoking any sort of emotion. And so we ask permission to pitch, and then of course we get into our pitch. And again, it lasts anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes. You can do your pitch however you want, either slideshow or just honestly, if they're ready to buy, then just talking about it. You can figure out different ways of doing it. Google Docs, slideshow, like mentioned, showing testimonials. Just find what works for you and run it. And so let's keep going here. So busy wearing multiple hats. Again, to me, this is pain because it's true. In order to scale, in order to get to that next level, you need to stop wearing multiple hats. If you're running an agency, which I'm assuming you are watching this, or if you're in the online high ticket sales space or agency specifically, I would have not been able to scale if I still had done everything myself, which includes creating the ads, creating all the campaigns, setting up GHL for all the brand new clients. I would not be where I'm at today if I had not delegated that. And so what often is the case with businesses, especially contractors, sub 4 or 5 million a year, is that they are doing everything themselves. And so in order to get to the next level, they have to stop wearing all these hats. And again, mirror it back to them. What do you mean wearing multiple? Or not like that. That's not with that tonality. That's argumentative. So I would say, what do you mean wearing multiple hats? Well, what happens if you continue to wear multiple hats? What happens with the business then? Simple questions like that. That's all. Okay. And again, this is music to my ears. This is pain. And he says that he also said, again, everything I'm writing here is pretty much verbatim for what the prospect said. We know what we need. We know we need to make a change. So you know that you need to make a change. You're clearly saying that to me right now. Why haven't we made a change yet? We've been doing this for X and X amount of time. You say now is the time to make a change, but please, this isn't a aha got you moment. This is just asking questions to figure this out for the both of us. And then he went into private equity comes into play, makes selling harder. So what happens if you stick to the old ways of doing things on paper and don't make a change? And also, if you do eventually want to get bought out by private equity, they're not going to like your business at the way it's currently standing. It makes selling harder. Why is it harder? What does that mean for your company? Losing jobs to competition? How much money are you missing? How much money you're leaving out on the table? Guys, this is it. So the entire time, what we're going to be basically doing in the discovery is moving horizontally until we find pain. And then once we find pain, we want to go up and down and create that gap, okay? So 2 years in business, really difficult breaking into a new market. Really difficult breaking into a new market. This is a limiting mindset. This is a limiting belief, which is basically them preventing their own growth into their own company. That's it. As simple as that, guys. And so we want to reframe these beliefs. What do you mean by difficult breaking into a new market? And then you could add context to the question by adding a story. So you could be like, yeah, so one of our roofing clients, they actually broke into the siding market in their new service area, and they were new to it as well. And once we got on the ground running with their paid advertising and our system, they were able to absolutely dominate the market. So why do you say it's difficult to break in? Guys, it just comes down to the owner, to the founder, not really understanding sales and marketing or business, to be honest. And it's true. Like, we've had clients cross niche and just completely fucking blow out the competition with our system. And that's facts. And so it doesn't matter what vehicle you're in. I mean, it kind of does to an extent, but let's say it doesn't. Then it just comes down to sales and marketing. And if you know what you're doing, then competition is irrelevant. That's why I always like to say saturation does not matter if you're the best. Cristiano Ronaldo does not care there's 2-3 billion soccer players on earth from around the world. Why? Because he's the best. He just focuses on himself, on his own product, on his own game, on his own skills. And over time, he gets to the point where saturation is irrelevant. And that's what we should all be striving to do if you're running an agency as well. Yes, of course, competition is super important. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be fixated on them. Like, yes, funnel hack them, study them, see how you can make your product better and different than them. But at the end of the day, just focus on yourself, and just in 6 to 12 months time, you're going to look back and say to yourself, wow, they are nowhere near where I'm at. And that's how it goes. So let's see here, SEO and leads and horror stories. This is what they mentioned. This is pain. This is past experiences. Reframe these industry turns into a car salesman and now just a bunch of gurus. This is interesting. First time I've actually ever heard this. And so this is just some more pain there. I asked why now, and we went to horror stories, bad return on leads, previous sales experience, looked at the numbers. Okay, cool. So again, guys, throughout the sales call, these were some of the notes that I took. And again, this is a thinking framework and how I think about these pain points. And it's a little bit harder to kind of teach or SOP thinking frameworks. And so I really hope that this video helps you guys. Just take one thing of value, please, away from this video. Apply it into your next sales call, and you have to listen. You do not sell people when you talk. You sell people when you listen. If somebody says to you, yeah, we've been struggling for 3 years in this current market, we're not happy with where we're at, and they give you pain, tons of pain, which you can move vertically in, and you just ignore it and you go on to the next question, and you're like, oh, so what are your goals for 2026? You are a fucking idiot, okay? You're stupid. Do not do that. When you hear pain, that is your sign to stop and say, and go deep. You move up and down. Once you've established everything there, then you keep moving horizontally. And then the pain again. And then you move up and down. And then pain again. And then you move up and down. So yes, we are sticking to a structure of how we do our calls. But this is why adaptability and evolving and playing the person in front of you is super important in sales, because you need to understand the hand that you are dealt and adjust your questions, adjust your pitch, adjust your tonality to the prospect in front of you. Okay. And so again, this is of value to me, and I hope to you guys as well. And if you guys have any specific questions, let me know on this. I will see you in the next.